They say you never truly know someone until you've seen them at their lowest. For Daniel, his wedding day was supposed to be the happiest day of his life. But instead, it became the beginning of the most painful and shocking test of love he would ever face. Everyone thought they were perfect, but only Daniel knew he had a secret, and what he did after the wedding would leave the entire town speechless. Why would a groom pretend to be crippled just days after his own wedding? What did he suspect about the woman he promised to love forever? And when the truth finally came out, why did she fall to her knees, begging for forgiveness? Was it love or deceit disguised as devotion? Stay with me because by the end of the story, you'll question what loyalty really means. Before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Before the tragedy, Daniel was a man everyone admired. A successful architect, humble, generous, the kind of man people called the perfect gentleman. He met Melissa at a charity event, a woman of beauty and quiet charm. She wasn't rich, but her smile could light up a room. Daniel fell for her kindness, her warmth, her apparent simplicity. On their third date, they sat by the lake watching the sunset. Daniel turned to her and asked, "You don't care about the money, do you?" Melissa looked at him with those soft brown eyes and said, "Money fades, Daniel. Love doesn't." Those words would soon haunt him. Everyone thought they were meant to be. His mother adored Melissa. His friends envied him. When he proposed under the stars with candles lighting the path to the beach, she cried tears of joy. The wedding was beautiful. White roses, laughter, promises whispered under the altar. But in the shadows of that happiness, Daniel began to notice small things. A secretive phone call, a sudden change of tone when he entered the room. A lie told too easily about where she'd been. He didn't want to believe it. He pushed the thoughts away, telling himself he was being paranoid. Until one night, 3 days before the wedding, he overheard her whispering on the phone in the bathroom. "Don't worry," she said quietly. "Once everything is settled, I'll have access to it all." His heart sank. He stood frozen outside the door, listening. Access to what? To whom was she speaking? He never asked. But that night, a seed of doubt was planted deep in his chest. Instead of confronting her, Daniel made a plan, one that would test the very core of her love. A week after their wedding, he faked an accident. He contacted a trusted doctor, an old friend from college, and explained everything. Together, they staged a terrible car crash. The news spread fast. Daniel has been in a terrible accident. He's in the hospital. The doctors say he might never walk again. Melissa rushed to the hospital, her face pale, her hands shaking. She pushed through the doors and found him lying in bed, bandages wrapped around his head, his legs still beneath the white sheets. "Oh my God! Daniel, what happened to you?" She grabbed his hand, her voice breaking. Daniel looked at her with weak eyes and whispered, "I can't feel my legs, Melissa. They say I may never walk again." She covered her mouth and sobbed. The nurses watched, thinking how devoted she was. His family stood in the corner, heartbroken but silent. And so the test began. At first, Melissa played the part of the devoted wife perfectly. She held his hand, prayed by his bedside, smiled for the visitors. She posted pictures on social media with captions like "standing by my husband no matter what." But when the curtains closed and the visitors left, her true colors began to show. Daniel recorded every moment, every word, pretending not to notice, watching how fast love can turn into burden. He installed a hidden camera in the living room, another in the bedroom. He wasn't proud of it, but he needed to know the truth. And then one night, she didn't come home. For days, Melissa's visits grew shorter. She'd walk in, glance at him, check her phone, and leave within minutes. Daniel's family stood by him, confused, heartbroken, but silent. His mother asked him once, "Is everything okay with Melissa?" He forced a smile and said, "She's just tired, Mom. Give her time." But deep down, he knew. When she finally returned after disappearing for 2 days, she wasn't the same. Cold eyes, no affection, just obligation. You can't expect me to spend my whole life beside a man who can't even stand on his own," she said one evening, her voice sharp and cutting. Those words pierced him like a knife. He stayed quiet, his fists clenched beneath the blanket, determined to see how far she would go. Soon after, she began selling his belongings. A vintage watch his father gave him, a painting he bought on their first trip together. She claimed she needed to cover hospital bills. In truth, she was spending the money elsewhere with another man. Daniel knew because he saw the receipts. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, gifts that were never for him. But Daniel kept silent because he wasn't done testing. He wanted to see if there was even a shred of the woman he fell in love with left inside her. One afternoon, his younger brother visited. He sat beside Daniel's wheelchair and whispered, "I saw her, Daniel, with someone, at a restaurant downtown." Daniel nodded slowly. "I know." His brother's face twisted in anger. "Then why don't you say something?" "Because," Daniel replied quietly, "I need to see this through. I need to know for sure." And so he waited, day after day, week after week, watching the woman he married become a stranger. One rainy evening, Melissa brought her lover home to Daniel's mansion. They thought he was asleep upstairs in the guest room. They laughed, drank wine, and spoke of a future together while Daniel sat quietly in the corner of the hallway in his wheelchair, pretending to be paralyzed, listening to every word. "How long will you keep this up?" the man asked, his voice casual, amused. Melissa laughed softly. "Just a little longer. Once I have control of his estate, he'll be out of the picture forever." The man chuckled. "You're ruthless, you know that?" She shrugged. "I'm practical. He was never going to give me the life I wanted anyway. Now I don't have to pretend anymore." Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. His hands gripped the armrests of the wheelchair. Every muscle in his body screamed to stand up, to confront them. But he waited. He had come this far. He needed her to reveal everything. They moved to the living room. Melissa poured more wine. The man wrapped his arms around her waist and kissed her neck. She giggled like a teenager. "This is the life," she whispered. "No more playing nurse. No more pretending to care. Soon it'll just be us." And that's when Daniel stood up. The sound of his footsteps echoed across the marble floor. The wine glass slipped from Melissa's hand and shattered on the ground. Her face went white. Her lover froze. "Daniel?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You can walk?" Daniel stepped into the light, his face calm, his eyes cold. "Out of the picture, you say? Then watch carefully, Melissa, because I'm walking out of your life on my own 2 feet." Melissa stumbled backward, her hands trembling. This isn't possible. You were paralyzed." Daniel crossed his arms. "No, Melissa, I was testing you, and you failed." Her lover bolted for the door, but Daniel's security team was already there. They escorted him out without a word. Melissa fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Daniel, I didn't mean any of it. I was scared, confused. I made a mistake." Daniel looked down at her, his expression unreadable. "No, Melissa, you were never scared. You were greedy, and now you'll live with the truth you tried to bury." He pulled out his phone and played the recordings. Every conversation, every lie, every cruel word she said when she thought he couldn't hear. Her face crumpled as she listened to her own voice. I didn't know you were," she stammered. "Of course you didn't," Daniel said quietly. "Because you never loved me. You loved what I could give you." His lawyer stepped forward and handed her an envelope. Inside were divorce papers and evidence of fraud. "You'll be hearing from my legal team," Daniel said, "and you'll leave this house tonight." Melissa looked around the mansion one last time, the home she thought would be hers forever, and sobbed. But no one felt sorry for her. Not his family, not his friends, not even herself. Because deep down, she knew she deserved this. That day, Daniel lost a wife but found himself again. He didn't collapse into bitterness. He didn't let her betrayal define him. Instead, he chose to rebuild. He threw himself into his work, designing buildings that inspired hope. He reconnected with old friends, traveled to places he'd always wanted to see, and eventually, He forgave not her, but himself for doubting his instincts. Months later, someone asked him, "Do you regret testing her?" Daniel smiled softly. "No, because now I know the difference between love and performance. Real love doesn't crumble when life gets hard. It doesn't calculate. It doesn't abandon." As for Melissa, she lost everything. Her reputation, her security, the man she left Daniel for. He left her the moment the money dried up. She tried to reach out to Daniel once, months after the divorce. A single text message. "I'm sorry." He never replied, because some apologies don't deserve answers, and some bridges are better left burned. Think about the people in your life. Are they there for you or for what you can give them? Would they stay if everything fell apart? Daniel's story reminds us that loyalty isn't loud. It doesn't need an audience. It shows up in the quiet moments when no one is watching. And betrayal? Betrayal always reveals itself when tested. How would you feel if you were in Daniel's shoes? What would you do if someone you loved only stayed for what you could provide? Would you have tested them? Or would you have walked away the moment you suspected the truth? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. Sometimes betrayal doesn't destroy you. It reveals who truly deserves to walk beside you. If this story touched your heart or made you think twice about trust and loyalty, make sure to subscribe to this channel. We bring you real, emotional, thought-provoking stories that stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Because the truth isn't always easy, but it's always worth knowing. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.